Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, welcome back to my series. Thanks for stopping by for another episode of Road to National Master. And in today's game, we are starting the third round of the third qualifiers of the Brasiliense Clássico. And this is round one, and I'm playing a friend from the local chess club, and this guy knows me pretty well. We played many times together, and I've never lost against him. So this was definitely good to see that I was playing against him in the first opening, and I know all of his openings that he plays. So this was really good to see. And another thing was he was not happy to play against me. I'll tell you that he was not happy to get me on the first round, and like from the get go, he knew that it was gonna be a tough game for him, and he was like already very nervous to play against me because I don't have a rating, but people know that the level I play at. So he was aware. He was aware. Let's leave it at that. So yeah, this game was definitely fun to play, and the opening went really smoothly. I get into the game then. I start with knight f3, and he plays d5 here, and I go g3 here. So this is what I usually tend to play, and he chooses to go for knight f6, bishop g2, bishop f5, which sends us into a reverse London system. And here I like to castle, and h6 is really, yeah, it's, in my opinion, this is just a waste of tempo. I wasn't really planning on going for knight h4 ideas in this game. Maybe he did this because I played knight h4 in a different game, but in this game I wasn't going to play that kind of system. I was going to go for something different in and of itself. So yeah, I mean, not really the best move you could play here. I think it would be best just continue off with the normal opening, like e6 stuff, maybe. So yeah, and from here I go c4, e6 now from him, knight c3, and I'm not sure. I think this is a bit of an imprecision. Let me check. Because if I'm not mistaken, maybe they can push d4 in these positions and it gets kind of strange. So if they push d4 here, no, yeah, of course not, yeah. That makes complete sense because the pawn is hanging. You can't push d4 because of knight takes d4, queen takes d4, bishop takes b7, and then that's obviously going to be better for you. So bishop e7 comes into play, and I play here d3. And my idea is I want to play in the center. I want to get some space in the center going, and I'm trying to play for that e4 push at some point. By the way, check out this cup. Look how cool this is. It's kind of like it's heat sensitive. So when you've got nothing in it, it's completely black. Like if I stick my finger here, it's gonna go a bit black. There you go. And when it's got like heat inside it, it shows like the Marauders map of Harry Potter. Hopefully you guys could see that. Not sure if that was on camera, but yeah, I think this is such a cool cup. Love it, love it, love it. And now he goes for castles, and I go for c takes, e takes, and now e4. And d4 looks a bit strange in the beginning. It looks strange because there are basically three defenders for black. There's the bishop here, the knight, and the pawn, whereas there's one pawn defending here for white and one knight defending. And the idea behind this is that it's okay to push this pawn because there's a third defender, which is a discovered defender, the bishop here, and this bishop will come into play for a discovery on his bishop, the bishop on f5, through maybe knight h4 or probably knight d4 in that case. So that's probably what we're gonna see. So d takes, and now I am free to play knight d4 if I need to, because the d4 square is defended by my queen now. And yeah, he sees this as well, and his solution isn't the best. I think the best solution is just to take. So to play something like knight takes, followed by knight d4, knight takes c3, b takes, and then we play this position where white has an isolated pawn on the c file. But the good thing about this is it's not super advanced, it's not super pushed up. We're gonna gain a tempo on the bishop, which is on f5, and we've got permanent pressure along this diagonal, which is really what you love as a fianchetto bishop player. You love this pressure along this long diagonal, and yeah, this was definitely going to be very good for me, and I was very comfortable getting into this. So what he does is he plays in this position queen takes, which is a bit of an imprecision. It just helps me develop quickly. Like this rook is already very active on the d file. It's uncontested for now, and I think that yeah, white is gonna, black's gonna struggle a bit here, and sure enough, he goes bishop g4, which is it's common when you have this pawn structure and you've pushed your e pawn up, because you start to get some light square weaknesses going, and this pin tends to be very effective, except for this position it's not really the case, because I can simply push h3, and if you trade for my knight, then again I get the monster bishop along this diagonal, and it's going to be really hard to play against this. So he sees this, doesn't go for it, and his solution again for this is suboptimal. He goes bishop c8, so undeveloping the bishop, and if you have to go all the way back to the starting square, you must not be happy about that. You know that you're doing something wrong in the opening. So yeah, I was really happy to see this move. I thought, this game is mine. How do I continue adding pressure to not let up the advantage? And I thought that bishop f4 was a pretty neat move. It's neat in my opinion because you're putting pressure on c7, and to defend c7 you're gonna have to obviously push the pawn or play knight a6. You can't play bishop to d6 because of e5 push. And yeah, this was very good to see on the board. He plays c6, and it's just a tempo move that lets me develop quickly. So bishop f4, this is now a piece that's developed, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces developed against his 2 pieces. So a really big lead. Okay, this is quite a big lead in development here, and I was really happy to see this. And I continue with knight d4, the best move in the position, just getting my knight to a more centralized square, and we are entering the middle game here. And yeah, I thought that even though I don't have any targets here to target straight away, I've got a very good position, and it's going to be quite hard for black to develop because there aren't any good squares for this bishop. Yeah, you can bring your rook to d1 and play something like this, but I mean, I've still got this whole file for myself. I can easily double up if I want to, and I've got this e5 push incoming. Like, this could always be a move at some point, and if I do get this push, maybe I push it to e6 possibly and open up some more lines if the position allows it. So I thought that I'm the only person here calling the shots, so which is correct. The computer gives this at 1.2 more or less, so this is definitely good for white. And he continues with the second engine move, which is knight a6, which holds the advantage for white at 1.25. And I was really happy to see this as well, because this knight, I was studying this a while back, where you get this knight here, and it really can't do anything after you play a3 and b4. So this was my idea, to play a3 and b4. Although this may not have been the best strategy, because this is an endgame, mind you, and I have 4 pawns on the king side, he has 3 pawns on the king side, and I have 2 pawns on the queen side, and he has 3 pawns on the queen side, which means on the queen side he possesses the majority. And a general rule of thumb is don't push your minorities unless you've got like a clear strategic plan, like a minority attack in the middle game, But in an endgame like this, it's usually not a good idea to push your minority because it just makes it way easier for him to create a pass pawn. And yeah, this ends up being true. The computer doesn't hate this idea of a3 and b4 just because the knight is indeed very restricted, but it's we're trading a permanent weakness in the position, basically. We're trading this weakness, which is in pawn structure, for a temporary weakness by him, which is a knight. A knight can always remanage to find its way back in the game, but pawns can't go backwards, so yeah, that's the problem here for me. And rook d8, I go for b4, and g5. And g5 was really aggressive by him. I'm not sure if it's the best move, let's check. Yeah, g5 is the best move, according to the engine. And it kind of balances out now because he's pushing his minority and I'm pushing my minority. Except you could say mine is a bit weaker. And after I play bishop e3, he plays a really interesting move here, which I didn't expect. I was calculating knight c7. I was calculating... what else was I calculating? I think mainly knight c7. That was really the only move I could see. I didn't see much of a point to any other move. Maybe king g7 was a thought in the back of my head, but yeah, knight c7 mostly. And I saw that after knight c7, again, I have great control over the b5 square. I've got two knights here, and my pawn is controlling this d5 square. So even if he goes knight c7, the knight can't really jump anywhere that is impactful here. So I thought this was still very good for me. But he plays the best move here, which is very interesting. And it's actually not the best move, sorry. It's the third best move, but it's definitely interesting. He goes c5. And c5 hitting my knight, hitting my pawn. And he has now got 3 attackers on this b4 pawn. So he's got 1, 2, 3. And I've got one measly defender here. So I'm definitely going to lose this trade. And here I spent a long time thinking, and I tried to come up with a good plan here. The plan I came up with was suboptimal. The better move would be to play... well, actually, think for a second, guys. What would you guys play here? Try and pause the video and figure this out. What's a good move here for white to play? And after a good think, if you found the move, congratulations. The move is knight db5. So we are sacrificing a pawn. Now what could be the motif for sacrificing a pawn? The idea is we have all of this activity. We've got all of our pieces developed here. And after c takes, a takes, and... well, first of all, you can't take the pawn on b4 because of rook takes d8. So he would play rook takes d1, rook takes d1, bishop takes b4. But now the problem is we've got all of our pieces developed. Every single piece on the board that white possesses is playing an active role in the attack. And black can already feel the pressure building up, and especially after rook d8 check. So rook d8 check, something like king g7, e5 push, for example. Where does your knight go? To a very terrible square. Knight g8 is probably the only move here, and then you can play something like bishop d4, and you've already got this discovered attack building up. You've got the bishop on a great diagonal, your other bishop's on a great diagonal too. You can never push the pawn to b6, and this bishop here is pinned, this is under attack, and this knight is very poorly placed and kind of trapped, and white's pieces are brilliant, basically. So this would have been super good to find. And now coming back to my suboptimal move, which I played knight f5 here. So after c5, knight f5, and my thought process was, okay, he can take my knight with his bishop, and that will give me very nice pressure along the b file. Sorry, along the long diagonal, hitting the b pawn. And yeah, I do consider this to be a mistake now. In my mind at the time, it wasn't such a big mistake, but now I really see the problems with this move. The problem is I had a great knight on d4. This knight was super well placed here on d4, and his bishop was really poorly placed here on c8. And when I play knight f5, it gives him just the perfect opportunity to trade a terrible piece for a very good piece. And not just that, but he's doubling my pawns. So my game just crashed. Let's give it a few seconds. Hopefully it loads back. Okay, and we are back. And the move again I played is knight f5. And yeah, this bishop of his really sucks. And my knight was super good. And if he trades it off, it's just a good trade for him. And he does trade it off. He plays bishop takes and e takes. It's not terrible for me. I do have the pressure along the long diagonal. So here he plays c takes, a takes, knight takes b4, and he's just up a solid pawn now. Although I play rook takes, rook takes, rook takes a7. And now I've got a really good rook on the 7th. So this was kind of like my whole justification. When I played knight f5, I had all of this in the back of my mind. I saw this line, and I felt still very comfortable here. I thought that white was adding the pressure. There's not really much for black to do. And yeah, I did stand mistaken there, because he has this nice move I didn't see at the end of knight bd5. And knight bd5 is basically trading down pieces, and when we do trade down pieces, white will be up a solid pawn, but the problem is that I've only got pawns on the same side as him. So I've got no passer, I've got only kingside pawns against kingside pawns, and in any rook endgame, this would be just a really easy draw. So the more he simplifies and trades down pieces, the better for him, because it becomes clearer as a draw, and the more my chances get diminished. I think this is already very close to equality here. And I felt super bad at this point, because it's like, how do I go from such a good position? I was so crushing in the opening, and now it's just equal because of one mistake I made, which is the knight db5 one. And yeah, I was really upset that I lost all my advantage, and I wanted to just maintain it and keep up the pressure. So I play bishop d4 here, just avoiding trades. And unfortunately here, he makes a bit of a mistake. And the better move here for him would be knight takes c3, bishop takes, again simplifying the pieces a bit. And this allows him to play rook d1 check, king h2, something like rook d3, and my bishop's going to get kicked around, and I'm not going to be able to capitalize on the pawn just yet. Maybe I could play rook takes b7, rook takes b7, rook takes c3, rook takes e7. Yeah, I mean, it seems okay, but again, it's very equal. Very, very equal. And yeah, not many chances there, but after bishop d4, he plays a bit of a mistake here. He plays rook d7. And if you're wondering why rook d7 is a mistake, it's because it allows a very nice tactical shot here for white, which I missed completely. I knew this had to be good for me. I couldn't find the variation. And it's very simple, and it's upsetting because I find it a move later. It is rook a8. And when you play rook a8, you have to block the check. If you play king h7, then king h7, knight takes d5, and you can't take back with the knight because of rook to h8 checkmate. And that's definitely good for white to checkmate, you know. So after rook a8 check, you could also try bishop to f8. And when you try bishop to f8, there will now be again knight takes, bishop c5, and the piece is completely undefendable. There's one defender, which is the king, and you can't bring another defender. If you try and block it with knight e7, you get hit by f6. And yeah, this is just over. In the case of bishop d8, if you try to defend like this, then there's just going to be very simple bishop takes, knight takes, rook takes, and bishop b6. And again, there are there are two attackers and one defender. A piece will be lost, and probably white will win this game. And I miss this tactical shot, and I play a mistake here, which loses the advantage. I play knight e4. And I was just trying to creep in slowly but surely, and I saw I saw this whole line of rook a8 check, but I thought it would be even better if I include knight e4, just because it develops a piece a bit more forwards. And sure enough, after knight e4, rook a8, bishop d6, bishop takes e4. Yes, my bishop is more developed, but this is now losing. It's losing. How do you go from such a winning position to losing if it's almost practically the same? It's incredible. And the thing is, it's because white had to play bishop takes e4, and even though that places the bishop on a better square, you're wasting such a significant tempo here, and you give him such a simple resource, which is just a free tempo to reorganize his position and save himself. And not just save himself, but save himself with his own tactical shot, which would be knight c7. And now the rook is hit, the bishop is hit, and if you try and play rook takes d8, rook takes bishop b6, it doesn't work because now there's just rook d1 check. And yeah, this would be like king g2, knight d5, and black is definitely going to go on to win this game here with a passer and very nice pieces here. It's going to be very difficult for white to even try and hold this. So yeah, this one tempo changed everything. So the whole blunder here was to play rook a8 check. I had to see that this waste of a tempo was going to be so bad that it's just not playable, rook e8, and you had to play bishop takes e4 indeed, and just go for that simple plan. And yeah, probably that would lead to a draw. I really didn't want to draw here because I had such a good position from the get-go, so I was really trying to force my hand here. And he plays bishop d8, bishop takes c4. He doesn't see knight c7, he plays king f8, thankfully. And now I'm thinking, okay, I may still have some chances to win a piece after bishop c5 check. I was calculating many lines here, many lines, and I really couldn't see anything that works for me. I was calculating f6, I was calculating stuff like bishop takes c4, rook takes, bishop to b6, but then king e7 and he's safe. And yeah, this was really where I spent most of my time here, and I got under serious time pressure in this position. So yeah, I really should have. Well, actually, I like the way I spent my time. I think it was good. I think you should spend time if you think there's something, and I definitely thought there was. Unfortunately, there wasn't, and that's just how it goes. So bishop c5 check was my attempt, and after king g7. And the idea of this move is basically after bishop c5, you cannot play king to e8, if I'm not mistaken. Why was that? Yeah, you can't play king e8 because I would have bishop d3 with the plan of going to bishop to b5, and that would pick up a piece. Or make black very passive with like knight c7, and then I could continue from there. Probably pick up the pawn, which is the passer, and get something rolling in that sense. So bishop c5, king g7, and bishop c2 now. And bishop c2 again has the idea of rerouting because I just couldn't find anything. I couldn't find anything that was going to lead to a tactic here. And bishop c2 was my attempt to create these tactical possibilities. And I'm trying to reroute to either a4 or b3. And I've always got the pawn push on f6. So maybe something like bishop d4, but then again, yeah, just f6. And he finds a good move here. He plays knight c3, and the idea of knight c3 completely stops the idea of bishop a4. and you just can't go bishop a4 here, so I try and go bishop a3 with the idea of going bishop to b2. And the problem with this is black has something really important that white gave up in the very beginning of the game. And remember how I said that the pawn structure is a permanent weakness and a poor placement of a piece is a temporary weakness? Look how the knight looks now. The knight is very nicely placed, and black still enjoys the advantage of white's mistake, which was pushing the pawns, and has a passer. So now b5 is a very good move. And if I try and go rook b8, no worries, he goes bishop b7. And here I just really had to trade off all the pieces. I really had to just take this bishop. Like bishop takes, rook takes, and then try and play for a blockade on this passed pawn, which is difficult but doable. Doable for sure. And I just didn't want to allow this, so I go for bishop b2, but bishop b2 is like a one move. It's gonna be a one move blunder. Again, b4, and here comes the blunder. Rook b6. Yep, rook b6. Just allowing a very simple rook d2. And I completely overlooked this because after bishop takes, b takes, this is just winning for him. He doesn't have to take my bishop on c2. He can take my bishop on c3, and once my bishop moves, it's just unstoppable. Bishop here, c2, and I have to take because if I go rook to c6, he plays rook d1 check, king up, and he queens. So I had to take. I had to try and defend this position to the best of my ability, and I set up what feels like the best defense I could do in this position, but after a few moves, he finds the solution, which is simply rook takes, and we trade into. So he's giving up his material lead, but he enters a winning position after king to f4. And there's just no way for me to protect the pawns. He's going to have two passed pawns and clean up the game pretty easily. So we play on for a few more moves. I lose my pawns, and I resign in this position. So, yeah. This game was really important from a psychological standpoint because it just shows you, like, chess is such a dynamic game. There's going to be positions that you're going to be going from winning to losing, back to winning again, and you need to play according to the board. You can't get stuck in your feelings and, like, I was so good, man, like, how could I be this, like, how can I be doing bad now, and try and force it even further. If your position is bad, you need to accept it and play according to what the position is demanding. So if you go from a winning position to a close to losing position, that position that's gone by, it doesn't exist. It's fairy dust. It's like you can't be so stuck in your head about this. You just need to play according to what the board wants, and yeah. This is really instructive to me, especially in terms of trades. This really helped me, and yeah, I hope this helped you. And if it did, let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed, also leave a like, comment, and consider sharing, subscribing also. And yeah, I'll see you guys next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.